In this video, traders, we're going to look at Bitcoin and how it might be affected by Paul Tudor Jones' recent announcement that he's investing 1% of his assets in it. Stay tuned. Hey guys, welcome to you. All right, so Bitcoin has been around for what, 10 years now? It's been around a while. Seems like less than that, but it has been around a while. And recently, Paul Tudor Jones, one of the best money managers out there, hedge fund managers, great trader in his time, real good kind of king, if you like, or one of the kings of this business, came out and said, hey, I'm putting 1% of my assets into Bitcoin, and basically explained why he was doing it. And one of the things he said, listen, I'm comparing Bitcoin to cash. And when you look at cash at the moment, and with the monetary inflation, you look at coronavirus, and you look at kind of those two as a store of value, banks are trying to erode cash value by 2% because of the inflation. Everyone's targeting 2% inflation. So by nature, you've got a depreciating asset just in cash. And so there's four things he kind of looks for as a store of value. And of course, he mentioned gold, but he's not comparing Bitcoin directly to gold. And he does point out that, hey, I'm only putting 1% of my assets in Bitcoin yet at the moment. It's not quite ready to go full load the boat. He does say he's still got some gold. But he talks about four of the things it looks for the store of value: the liquidity, the purchasing power, the affordability, and the trustworthiness. And he says, listen, Bitcoin, it's been around 10 years and people are still not trusting it fully, but every day that goes by, the trustworthiness is going to increase. And you know what, that's a good statement to make, isn't it? But let's look at it objectively, and let's look at how Bitcoin might be affected by this. So, one thing with Bitcoin, listen, it's no secret that I've not been a huge fan of cryptos. I've kind of traded Bitcoin a little bit ages ago on that big ramp up, but I've not really got involved in it. But I enjoy watching it. I think it's interesting, and I enjoy listening to both sides of the argument, but I've never kind of dived in it. So this is pretty an objective view, really, from a trader's perspective. I'm not a fanboy by any stretch of the imagination, a bit of healthy skepticism in things, but still optimistic about the future. So listen, how's it going to impact? So regardless of his reasons behind it, there's no doubt that Paul Tudor Jones is really respected hedge fund manager, well respected throughout the whole field. And so even though he's got 1% in, and he says, okay, 1% of my assets in there, I'm not sure how he's got exposure to it, whether he's got exposure to it with actual Bitcoin, whether he's got exposure by futures, doesn't really matter, I suppose. But on the end of the day, what that does is that adds more trust to it. And something he did mention, he mentioned about trust a lot. And it's still here, it's not kind of gone away. Yes, it's been volatile, and we've seen that ramp up when retail were involved in it back in 17, but it's kind of got its own momentum now. There's a lot of people who have been holding it a while, they see it as what it is, and it's starting to kind of trade off its own back. And he did talk about the digitization of things as well, and the way everything's going digital, so he slightly touched on that, but I think he's looking at more of a store of value. But regardless of his reasons for trading it or for investing in it, how does that affect the movement or the potential move in price for Bitcoin from here? So if you think that hedge fund managers now around the world will be looking at Paul Tudor Jones and going, okay, if he's got 1% in it, I can quite safely put some assets in it and not feel like I'm the one who's standing out on a limb. I can justify if it goes wrong by saying, well, it's quite a popular thing for hedge fund traders to do because I've seen Paul Tudor Jones do it. Do you know what? When hedge fund managers make moves, often they're copying others purely because they want to not be on the hook for a mistake, purely because they want to, some of the kind of middle managers, if you like, who aren't going to outperform and stuff, are saying, hey, I can justify now having some assets in Bitcoin, which could drive a lot of demand into Bitcoin. Look at the chart here. We've been sitting around 10,000 for a long time now, and it does feel from a technical perspective, if we can build above that recent kind of high, it's probably around 10.5, isn't it, or 11,000. If we start to build there, then it's got potential to push on to kind of 15, etc. Now, that's the technical perspective, and of course we're in an uptrend here, but we have been in this range. But the point is, guys, is if we have extra demand coming in, where's my rectangle? There it is. If we have extra demand coming in from hedge funds who are tucking it away, who aren't going to be selling on the slightest little pullback because they're going to be investing for the longer term, and this trustworthiness has now become, or the asset has become more credible because someone like Paul Tudor Jones has come into it, and it gives the attention of a lot of institutions, a lot of other players who see this, who watch him, who see what he's doing, see him publicly saying this and go, hey, you know what, maybe we should consider putting some assets in it. Maybe we should at least have something in it, because, okay, what happens if it suddenly rips to the stratosphere and goes to 50,000? We'll look pretty foolish that we didn't have at least something in it. So that's my thinking. Whether or not that happens, I don't know. There's going to be some people who are skeptical still, etc., and people who've got their own strategies, of course, but it might bring a few people out of the woodwork, which, of course, will add some support to Bitcoin. You know, it'll find some support. I'm sure we're going to get these shudders, and I'm sure there's going to be kind of news coming out as it happens and bits and pieces that affect it. But maybe Paul Tudor Jones saying that will add some support to the price, and we'll start to see some upward pressure. Now, will we see it immediately? And again, this is just me hypothesizing and speculating and kind of thinking about the whole scenario. Maybe after coronavirus has gone and it's kind of the markets have calmed down, because let's be honest, guys, you know, everyone's focus, every money manager's focus, if they're not involved in crypto at the moment, they're all focused on equities, they're all focused on treasuries, they're all focused on commodities, they're focused on what's going on now because there's volatility there. They are trying to manage some of the losses perhaps they took back in Q1, trying to get some of those back, trying to position, trying to play out. So they're busy, they're doing stuff. However, when things calm down a little bit, it's possible they might look at their kind of to-do list per se and go, oh, you know what? We need to look at some Bitcoin now. We've positioned, we're okay, we survived the year, everything's kind of calm now, we're happy with our positions. Where do we want to look to move over the next quarter, next half of the year? And maybe because Paul Tudor Jones has come in, they might say, you know what, we need to start allocating some assets into Bitcoin. You know, again, I'm purely guessing. It'll be interesting to hear what your comments on this, guys. What you think about this? Do you think this is kind of a complete nonsense? It doesn't matter whether Paul Tudor Jones is, or do you think a little bit like me that maybe, you know, we could see now some additional institutional money starting to accumulate Bitcoin? Now, from a technical perspective, for me, I would like to see two things combine, and very often I talk about this, I like to see a couple of things together. If I can find my drawing pen, guys, I will draw on it. Okay, so what we have is this, is a brush. We have the technical move above there that holds. That would tick my filter for a technical filter, and the fundamental, it's very loose. Like Paul Tudor Jones, I wouldn't be putting huge amounts of money into this trade, but if we started perhaps to pick up and we had, let's call it the Paul Tudor Jones floor, maybe there's a risk reward trade there that yields something that potentially can get a bit of rally on. I mean, it hasn't really rallied aggressively since he's come out. I'm not sure when it came out, but it was in this rectangle somewhere. So we haven't seen a rush of buyers after that, but maybe there is a floor there. Maybe we see, the other thing that I quite like to see, guys, is the kind of dip below that might get a bit of buying, come back up, and then maybe I'll take the breakout there. Like I say, this is a kind of way down the list of my ideas, but I want to share it with you guys because I know that a lot of you are into crypto, a lot of you are kind of following this kind of stuff. I'm interested to hear what your thoughts and comments on it. What do you think about Paul Tudor Jones coming in? Do you think Bitcoin's got a future? Do you think that actually, now that he's publicly said he's got 1% of his assets in, that opens the floodgates up, and soon enough, we'll see a lot of hedge funds using it as a store of value? Because let's be honest, guys, if it becomes a serious store of value, and the trustworthiness is there, the liquidity builds up, and all those four things that PTJ says are on his list, it could really get a bit of a move on. All right, guys, that's it. That's Bitcoin. That's what Paul Tudor Jones has said. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. See you next one. Take care. Bye-bye.